All right, welcome. Today we're going to tackle a topic that's, well, absolutely everywhere in tech right now. Let's just get right into it. So, if you've been anywhere near a tech interview lately, I'm sure you've noticed this. Suddenly, database questions are all over the place. So what's up with that? Why the sudden obsession?
Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. The biggest companies out there, we're talking Google, Meta, Amazon, you name them, their entire existence is built on top of gigantic, incredibly complex databases. They absolutely need people who can speak that language. Bottom line, if you want a job at one of these places, you've got to get your head around this.
Okay, so if we're going to ace those questions, we have to start at square one. We're going to break down this big idea of a database system. You see, the first thing to get is that a database system isn't just one single thing. It's actually made up of two totally distinct but super important parts. On one side, you have the database itself, the actual raw data. And on the other, you've got the DBMS, the database management system. That's the software, the brains of the operation that actually manages all that data. Let's look at each one.
Let's start with the database itself. The simplest definition you'll ever hear is this. It's a collection of related data. And I want you to pay close attention to that word, related. It's honestly the most important word in that entire definition.
And this quote right here, it's the perfect way to understand what we mean by related. Think about it, right? Indian Railways. Their whole database is about trains, schedules, passengers. It's all related to their business. It would make zero sense for them to suddenly mix in a bunch of data from the passport office. That's a whole different world, a whole separate collection of related info. See? Keeping these collections separate but internally related is the whole point. All right, so we've established that a database is a collection of related stuff. But how is that stuff actually organized? It really boils down to two main categories, and you've got to know the difference. On the one hand, you've got structured data. This is the neat and tidy stuff. Think about your university records, right? There's a perfect little box for your student ID, another for your name, one for your major. Everything has its place. It's predictable. Then, on the other hand, you have the Wild West, unstructured data. This is, well, it's everything else. Your photos, videos, those random posts you see online, there are no neat little boxes for any of it, which, as you can imagine, makes it way harder to deal with. Okay, we've talked about the data itself. Now let's talk about the manager, the DBMS, or Database Management System.
Seriously, the best way to picture a DBMS is to think of it as a super efficient manager. It's this layer of software that sits between you and all that raw data. It basically lets you get what you need without having to dig through all the messy filing cabinets yourself.
So what can this manager do for you? Well, it handles the basics, the real bread and butter operations. You need to add new info? That's an insert. Got to get rid of something old? Delete. Need to change some existing data? That's an update. Simple as that. A student moves to a new apartment, you tell the DBMS to update their address. Done. And this, right here, is where the real magic of a DBMS comes in. It creates this amazing layer of abstraction. As a user, you really don't have to care if the data is stored on a server in Mumbai or a hard drive in your basement. You just say, hey, DBMS, book me this ticket, and it figures out all the complicated stuff in the background. It's what makes everything work so smoothly. All right, this is where it all starts to click. Let's take these two big ideas we've been talking about, that nice, organized, structured data, and the system that manages it, and put them together.
Okay, remember that super organized, structured data we were just talking about? The stuff with the neat rows and columns? Well, we usually just call them tables, right? But in database speak, they have a fancy technical name, and it's a name you absolutely need to know.
They're called relations. That's it. And honestly, if you've ever worked with an Excel spreadsheet, you already get what a relation is. It's just a table, rows and columns, simple. And look at this. This is a perfect example. It looks exactly like something you'd see on the IRCTC website, doesn't it? You've got your columns, train number, name, departure time. And each row is one specific train. This simple table, this is a relation. Okay, so let's connect the dots. A DBMS is a system for managing a database. And if our data is stored in these things called relations, well, it just makes sense that you'd need a special kind of DBMS for that, right? And that's exactly what an RDBMS is, a relational database management system. It's a system built from the ground up to handle data that's organized in tables, relations. Now, we've spent all this time talking about the nice, structured world of RDBMS, and it's super important.
But to really understand the bigger picture, I want you to just look at this number.
That's right. A mind-blowing 90% of all the data in the world today is unstructured. All of it. The photos, the videos, the websites we talked about earlier, that's not the exception. That's the rule. It's the vast majority of information out there. And it's exactly why you hear so much about things like big data and other technologies designed to make sense of all that chaos. And that leads us to the big, final question we have to ask ourselves. If 90% of all data is this unstructured mess, why is it that mastering the structured world of the RDBMS is still the first, most fundamental step for basically any career in technology? Something to think about, isn't it?